Good morning, all. Today we will be talking about Mula Mutha River Rejuvenation project. We will see how the project is framed, which were the basic studies, technical studies were conducted. Because since 2016, we are working on this project, and how the objectives are framed for the project, and how the master plan is prepared. So let's go into the presentation directly. To start with, this is a kind of team what we have. On left-hand side, you see the various authorities and concerned departments with whom we worked. Pune Municipal Corporation and Pimpri-Chinchwad Municipal Corporation has adjacent areas along the Mula Mutha rivers. Similarly, Khadki Cantonment Board, CME, some defense areas also have adjacency to the river. Apart from that, some key important departments are also mentioned here, which are like a land record department, irrigation department, CWPRS, etc. So how these various departments were involved in the project, we will talk about it in detail. But for the relevant topics and subsequent approvals, all these departments were also a part of this project since beginning. Apart from authorities and the departments, on the right side, we see various experts and the list of the various consultants for various expertise, which worked with those who worked with HCP for various technical studies and proposal preparation. They are enlisted here. So I'm not going into the detailed list reading one by one, but because the project is very, very comprehensive and very need to address so many technical issues. So all these experts were involved into the project since beginning. This is the framework of the project. Initially, we'll talk about the project context, various technical studies that those we have done, the issues and objectives which were identified on site, and to address those issues, what are the objectives the project addresses, what is the comprehensive outcome as a master plan we see. So that is the project flow. When we talk about Pune, we also know about the long history of the Pune, and the traces of Pune city, what we see today, we found in 7th century. However, the existence of the settlement in Pune was definitely before that also. Slowly, the Khiljis and Sultanate came into the picture, and subsequently, Shri Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj and Shahu Maharaj Bhosle, they were here during 16th and 17th century. Eventually, the Peshwas came in Pune, who sort of handled the administrative seat of Pune. In 17th century, the construction of Shaniwar Wada, which is a historical place, was done along the river. So entire small settlement of Pune was along the Mutha river. This was the settlement in the 17th century. So you see, this is very tiny area, just 0.2 square kilometer of area along the Mutha river. And very old area, what we see today, was part of it. Kumbharwada and Kasbe. So those areas were part of it. During the 17th century, as there was no bridge constructed on the river, people used to cross the river or navigate by walk or with the help of animals. Because the city was very tiny and on one side only, so the crossing was also not that frequent. In 18th century, this was a painting prepared by one of the British person. It shows Sinhagad in background. This is the confluence area. Mutha and Mula rivers are coming together. And on left side, you see Parvati and the settlement of Punavadi. You can easily identify that because the settlement is very tiny. The river water must be very clean here and without any encroachment. The edges are very natural in condition. Subsequently, in 1875, again, the Nike bed is visible here. This is the visualization or view from the Mula Mutha side and Parvati and Sinhagad in background. So most of the river edge is in natural condition. River is also in natural condition without any pollution. After that, the first bridge was constructed at Bund Garden, and some other bridges also came in picture. So once the bridge comes in reality, then the crossing facility is provided and the city starts growing on the other side of the river also. And that's how the city started growing on another bank of the river, Mutha. This is the photograph having Shaniwar Wada in the background, and Sri Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj Bridge was under construction in 1923. In 1923, when the bridge construction was completed and on inaugural ceremony, this was the photograph. This is the location of the bridge, and city started growing. In 1940s, you see the same bridge in background, and the city is also visible on both banks of the Mutha River. Later on, the bus transport system was also observed, and with the help of the bus transport system, the reach of the people for the daily commute purpose started growing across the city. So not only crossing the river, but also the sprawl of the city started growing. So in a nutshell, during the 17th century, the Pune city was very small, tiny, one-sided settlement, and gradually it started growing. Now in 2000 series, we see the Pimpri-Chinchwad Municipal Corporation is also developed on upstream northern side of the city. And that's why on all sides of the Mula Mutha and Mula Mutha river, we see the developed areas in a black color. So most of the river edges are having urbanization development on both the sides. And this process has taken place in sort of 3 centuries. So the urbanization happens gradually the way the river gets choked or polluted gradually. So that's what has happened with the Mula Mutha rivers also. This is a photograph from the Shivaji Bridge in 1930. Most of the river edge was natural and the water is also clean. And by the time you see 2010, the river is converted into narrow channel. There are multiple low level, upper level bridges, drainage lines, and city has grown. So that's how the city development has effect on the river, which we see today. And apart from that, we also see a lot of garbage dumping along the river edges. The river water is also very much polluted. You see the color of it. There are a number of nalas which are bringing pollution into the river. Most of the river edges are inaccessible because the private properties are up to the river edge and there is no continuous walking trail or promenade kind of facility. So all that is resulting into the flood threat to the river and the surrounding areas. Because of the water pollution, the aquatic life has suffered because of the dumping of garbage and debris. The aquatic life ecology has suffered. So all these news are there, which we are very much aware of it. And therefore, the Pune Municipal Corporation, along with the Pimpri-Chinchwad Municipal Corporation, has taken up a river rejuvenation project for the Mula Mutha and Mula Mutha river, which should be very comprehensive and context specific. So this is the PMC boundary shown in a yellow color and white boundary of the PCMC. So we see Mula river, which is 22 kilometer, Mutha river, which is 10.4 kilometer. And when these two rivers join together becomes 11.8 kilometer. So in totality, we have 44 kilometer of rivers within the PMC jurisdiction. So that is the project length. However, for the study purpose, we also need to understand from where these rivers are flowing, from where we have these reservoirs on upstream, how many reservoirs, what will be the total water flow quantity into it, and how it will flow. So that is called as the hydrology study, which we did for the upstream area also, and the entire catchment was considered. So this is the slope terrain map, which indicates various catchment areas for various reservoirs in upstream area, as well as the local catchment after the reservoirs till the project end. For each river and each stream is identified here. So all the sub springs or channels, which are natural drains, which are meeting the river, are also part of this entire catchment. We also have PCMC boundary on northern side of the Mula river, Pimpli-Nilak defense area, CME and KCB defense areas along the river. So all these authorities were part of the project since beginning, so that they are informed that what kind of proposals need to be framed for the river rejuvenation project. So now let's understand which are the various technical studies we conducted for this project. There are a number of technical studies we did to understand what is the character of these rivers. So the first one is the topographical survey, geotechnical investigation, hydrology and hydraulics understanding, public opinion survey also we did. We did a base map preparation and environmental monitoring also we did during the whole course of the project. So let's see one by one. So this is a topographical survey of the entire river. So when I say river, that means the edge to edge river, and we also did the topographical survey of the surrounding area, approximately 50 to 100 meter on both the sides. So when we did the topographical survey, so all the physical elements are there within the project area, within the river were mapped, such as drainage lines, road, bridges, culverts, the channels, the levels, if the compound wall is coming along, if any structure is there. So all these physical entities, elements were mapped in detail so that the study can consider all these physical elements which are there. And accordingly, we can prepare the further studies. So these are some of the visualizations, how the topographical survey of the entire river was conducted on site, below the bridge, within the river, everywhere. Next important study was the geotechnical investigation. Geotechnical investigation was carried out at multiple locations on both sides of the river to understand what is the strata, how is the ground there. So during the execution stage, the existing soil character is considered. So this is the geotechnical investigation, and this is the report of the same. Third important study was to understand the hydrology and hydraulics part of the river. So as I mentioned earlier, the entire catchment of the rivers was studied for the hydrology study, and the hydraulics was also studied for the same. We prepared a hydrology and hydraulics report for the river, on which we got the waiting from CWPRS and clearance from the irrigation department also subsequently. In nutshell, if I want to explain you what is the study is, it says that whatever the quantity of water flows through the river is studied under the hydrology. So how much water flows through the river is a hydrological study, and how it will flow, what will be the character, what will be the levels, is defined under the hydraulic study. So this is combination of hydrology and hydraulic study, and based on the approved hydrology and hydraulic study, the project is prepared. The master plan is prepared. In order to prepare that, detailed discussions, presentations, meetings were held with the irrigation department, and as directed by irrigation department, also with the CWPRS, very reputed organization in Pune. Also, we conducted the discussions, and subsequently we got the clearances from both the departments. These are some of the meeting photographs. We also did a flood committee discussions at a state level regarding explaining the project. A fourth important study, what we did was to understand the perception of people, those who are living along the river, those who are walking, jogging, doing some work. So on both the side, 500-meter buffer, that is 1 kilometer on both the side, was the area where we did the opinion survey of 4,700 plus people to understand the existing issues and their perception, their requirement from the project. This is very interesting information from the survey. So if you see the percentage, we have sequenced it. So water quality shall be improved. Then we need to ensure the water flow into the river. The majority of the river is dry. Hence, we need to ensure the water availability into the river. That will also result into restoration of the ecology, which was pointed out. Improving the public open spaces. There are very few public open spaces. Those also need to be improved. The aesthetic importance of the river is not there currently. River is very shabby and unhygienic, so that need to be improved. There are flood threats along the river area, the low-lying areas. So flood safety is also important aspect. And connectivity between the banks and connectivity along the bank is also identified by the people. So if you summarize all these points, that means we need to prepare a comprehensive proposal which will resolve all these issues. Apart from that, we also did number of stakeholder consultations, workshop with the experts from various departments, relevant departments, the people representatives, standing committees, as well as NGOs and medias time to time. These are very few photographs which we are showing here. Fifth, very important study which we conducted was to prepare a base map. So based on the land record data from the land record department, for the both sides of the river, a detailed land record map was prepared to understand where the exact river is on paper. So when we, based on the topographical survey, when we adjust the land record data on it, so on one side we will be having a private plot, then river, and then private plot on the other side. So this black boundary becomes our river land boundary. It's a legal river land boundary as per the land record. However, on site, there might be river within these boundaries, or at some places, because of the scouring effect or anything, the river might shift a little bit here and there. But in our case, because the riverbed is rocky, so there is no many places like this where the scouring has happened and river has shifted. So most of the places, river is flowing through the river land itself. So identifying the legal river land boundary was the objective. So because whenever we go for the execution and we want to do some protection work or anything, then we need to understand who owns that land, right? Sixth, one of the most important aspect of the study was to understand the environmental status of the river, such as what is the quality of water, what is the quality of soil, air, everything. So we did that baseline monitoring for all the aspects. And subsequently, the project also got the environmental clearance in November 2019. After doing the testing and all, we realized that the water quality is highly polluted, and that's why it is adversely impacting the aquatic life of the river. There is a huge reduction in the number of fishes, which is also mentioned in local newspapers. There is a spread of water hyacinth into the river, which further deteriorates, reduces the oxygen level into the river. One can observe the species which are indicator of the pollution into the river, and subsequently the river's self-cleaning capacity, self-purification capacity has gone down. So whatever water we see into the river is very much polluted, or the sewage water which is flowing into the river. So these are some of the locations where you see huge development of hyacinth and pollution. So all these were the technical studies which shows that our river is very much polluted. Our city has grown along the river, and we need to sort of do the comprehensive project to deal with all the issues. But when we go on site, we also see some other visual aspects, like there is a huge dumping of garbage along the river at many places. Similarly, the debris dumping is happening along the river, and that's why the pollution into the river, which we may call as a encroachment into the river, is also happening. There are a number of piped outfalls or nalas, open outfalls, which are bringing polluted water into the river, which is further deteriorating the quality of water into the river. Similarly, because the city has grown in numerous directions, 88 kilometers of age we have here, so surrounding areas are often getting submerged during the flood, and even the low-level roads or bridges are there which gets submerged very frequently. So flood threat is there. Majority of the river edge is inaccessible. People cannot see the river, people cannot walk along the river, though it is a public asset. Majority of the river bank is a dry, and whatever water we see into the river is just a polluted drainage which is flowing into the river. Even the Mula river and Mutha river and Mula Mutha river, all three rivers have similar quality of water and similar dry riverbed. And because of this dryness, there is no growth of the ecological trees, grasses, flora, fauna, and also unavailability of water is resulting into the loss of aquatic life. If we see at many places, authority has developed some nice ghats. The drainage lines are there to control the pollution into the river. The temples or gardens are also developed along the river. But all these activities or efforts are in piecemeal manner. So now under this project, we need to create a comprehensive proposal which will connect all these, and yet it should create a meaningful space for the city. So all these observations brings us to the conclusion that the city has turned its back to the river. Nobody wants to see the river. Nobody wants to approach the river. Even along the slum, you see the protection wall is constructed so that it should not be affected by the flood, and they don't want to see the river. Max people use river for the dumping, as you see here. So our idea was to identify the issues which are there into the river, and all those issues need to be addressed and converted into a positive opportunity for the river development, river rejuvenation project. So if the river is polluted, then we need to make it clean and pollution free. River has a flood of risk of flooding, then that risk need to be reduced. River cannot be accessed by the people, so we need to make the river accessible in a strategic way. Riverbed is mostly dry, and that is resulting into loss of ecology and biodiversity. So we need to bring the water, and that is also clean flowing water. The poor connectivity along the river, across the river, is creating issue. So we need to improve the connectivity aspect of the river. Whatever piecemeal haphazard development has happened, and the existing heritage, recreational, religious, socio-cultural activities are there, those activities need to be integrated with this proposal, and a better connectivity with the river should be established. So we are very much dependent on the river, but that dependency is also need to be enhanced by provision of appropriate facilities along the river. Now let's see one by one how these objectives are strategized into the master plan. So there are multiple locations where the pollution is entering into the river in form of nalas and piped outfalls. So these are the locations where the nalas and piped outfalls are bringing pollution into the river. So we try to understand where are the existing interceptor lines along the river. Either they can help to curb these piped outfalls and nalas and take the effluent into these interceptor lines. Apart from that, the JICA proposal is also ongoing. Under the JICA proposal, there are some locations where along the river, the interceptor line is proposed. So wherever possible, these piped outfalls or polluted nalas can be curbed with the help of these lines and taken to the STP for the treatment. However, even though if some nalas and piped outfalls are remaining and entering into the river, polluting the river, then we can add another interceptor line which can help us to curb these polluting sources and take the effluent till the treatment plant. So this is existing situation in which we have the polluted water into the river, very low level water. There are some sort of these pipe outfalls pouring pollution into the river, polluted water. On upstream areas, you can also see the construction debris or garbage dumping has happened. So what we are doing, we are envisioning this kind of green embankment, edge protection work, which will house this interceptor line and which will help us to curb these piped outfalls or nalas. So there will be no direct effluent pouring into the river. However, it will be taken to the STPs, treated, and then only it will be released into the river. So let's understand what is the scenario of the STPs. So in current situation, we have 11 STPs and most of these STPs are along the river. So apart from these 11 STPs, under the JICA project, 10 STPs are proposed. So these 10 STPs will be added very soon. The work for these 10 STPs is ongoing. The tenders are floated and very soon we will see these STPs working. So which will take care of the entire treatment of the city's effluent. Apart from that, on upstream part of the river Mutha, where we can see the development is happening. So from there also, the effluent should not directly get flowing into the river. Hence, we have proposed 2 STPs on upstream part of both the sides of the river, so that only treated water should enter into the river. So once this STPs are established, executed, then PMC will be able to treat the 100% effluent generated in the city and no outfalls will be bringing effluent into the river. So this is a short summary of the entire calculation of the STPs. So with the help of PMC's 24/7 scheme, they will be able to curtail the supply or the consumption with the help of telescopic metering system and also curbing the leakages. So the effective sewage generation will be reduced to 1062 MLD. In existing situation, we have 477 working STP capacity. Under JICA, these 10 STPs will increase or add 396 MLD. So that together becomes 873 MLD. Apart from that, a private STPs are already existing, which is 32 MLD. There are 4 STPs in progress, additional, which is 132 MLD. And remaining 25 MLD STP will also be added into it. So that covers the 100% requirement of Pune city. So please remember this 870 MLD along the river, which I will refer later on. So in a nutshell, the entire sewage generation of the city will be treated in STPs, and then only it will be released into the river. But in existing condition, we also see these kind of interceptor lines along the river with huge manholes. And during the flood, when the flood comes, these manholes act as obstruction to the flow of water and also gets damaged and results into the leakage of the sewage into the river. So in order to avoid that, we are proposing to integrate these existing lines. If required, we can shift these lines behind and better integrate with the proposed green embankment so that there will be no damage, there will be no obstruction to the flow of water during the flood, and the maintenance will also be very easy. So that was about the cleaning of water. But apart from water, we also have other pollution sources, such as dumping of construction debris and dumping of garbage also. Because the river edge has no check, no monitoring, and no access for the monitoring, there are multiple locations where we see the garbage dumping or construction debris dumping along the river. So this is one of the location. But if we, instead of unchecked areas, if we create these kind of walkable edges along the river, which will keep people walking along the river, so one can keep a check along the river and no further construction debris or garbage will be dumped on these edges. And that's how we can get rid of the garbage dumping and construction debris along the river. And that's how we can make, in real sense, the river clean from all type of pollutions. Now let's go to reduce the risk of flooding objective. As I mentioned earlier, this is a terrain map, and this was the entire catchment. In this catchment, if you see the history, this is the Khadakwasla Dam. When the Panshet Dam broke and the flood was observed along the river in a Pune city, in 61, the Lakdi bridge also collapsed during that time, and the flood water entered into the city areas. After that, again the Panshet Dam as well as Khadakwasla Dam, both these dams were constructed with the better technology, advanced technology. And therefore, we do not have the issue of dam break now. However, still we face some amount of flooding along the river. And that flooding, which we are talking now, is a kind of frequent flooding or the flooding up to the 100-year level. So you see in this photograph, the Baba Bhide bridge, which is low level bridge, and the roads along that on both the sides are submerged under the water. And not only that, because of these kind of structures, the level of flood water also increases because it creates obstruction to the water flow. In these 3 photographs also you can see the river water is entering into the developed areas and also into the habitable areas. So why it is happening? Because some of the surrounding areas are low level and we have created a lot of obstruction into the river. And that's why the flood level is increasing and water is entering into the surrounding areas and inundating it. So as the photograph shows, there are a number of obstructions into the river, such as Visarjan tank, which is a huge structure as such. The manholes are large. There is a narrow channel by which the carrying capacity of the river is reduced. There are causeways which are obstructing the river. Garbage or construction debris has dumped along the river. So those are various obstructions into the river. So if we remove all these obstructions, then the path of the river water will be easy to pass and the level of water will also reduce. It will also reduce the inundation area. However, still there might be some inundation into the surrounding area. In order to protect these surrounding areas, we need to create these kind of edge protections. But in understanding the local climate and the conditions, we are proposing a green kind of edge protection work. So during non-flood area time, it will house the thick vegetation, native grasses and shrubs and walking trails also. And when the flood comes, it will allow the flood to pass, but not to inundate the surrounding areas. Now let's understand the scenario in plan. So this is our river. On top we have Mula river, very meandering. Below we have Mutha river. And when these two rivers join, it becomes Mula Mutha river. In reality, this blue line is the river on site. So at some places, the river is very narrow. At some places, the river has bulges or it is wider than the average width. This is on-site situation. So here you see, maybe because of the construction on one side, you see the river is choked. The river width is reduced. When the flood lines are marked overlapped on it, so this purple line indicates this is land record boundary. So you can easily understand how the river sometimes also exceeds the river land boundary. When the water is flowing through the river in a lean period, it flows in this meandering manner because of the river edges are undulating as well as front and back. And because of that, the water flows in a meandering manner. When the water level rises up to the river bank top, then the undulation increases because of the edges, the meandering edges. So which you can see. And when the flood comes up to the frequent flood, which is 25-year flood, then these surrounding low level areas are also getting inundated. And because these are very low level areas, the water is little stagnant there, the velocity reduces, and also it creates eddies. That means the water flows in a circular manner, and not only it's flows in a circular manner, but also it creates obstruction to the flowing water, and subsequently the water velocity reduces. Further to that, when the higher flood comes, let's assume 100-year flood as indicated in a red line. So those low level areas in a surrounding may also get inundated. Some of these areas might be developed also on site. And again, these kind of dead pockets are created where the water is entering, but it is in a stagnant format, which is not actually adding into any flow area into the river, but it is more stagnant water. So what we are trying to do in this scenario also, the actual flowing water is in a middle where the maximum height is available and width is available. So from there, if we concentrate all the water to flow, so we need to create this kind of streamlining. So our entire water should flow from the center because the surrounding water is not really adding value into it, rather creating eddies and reducing the velocity and increasing the HFL. So in order to ensure that the water should flow through the river itself and should not inundate the surrounding areas, it is important to create some edge along the river. And that aging work, age protection work, which we can call as a 100-year embankment, is proposed along the river, along the same alignment of the existing river. So this is how the existing cross section looks like. The dead areas were there, and by doing the age protection, we get rid of the dead areas and the river velocity increases. Now let's see on a particular location. This is photograph from the Kalyani Nagar bridge and how the lean period water of effluent water is flowing into the river. If the inundation area, the surrounding inundation area gets inundated, like if the 100-year flood comes, then how it gets inundated. But if we have the age protection work, the same water will pass through the river prism only. It will not inundate the surrounding area. And once the water is gone, then on next day, we can again have these green edges available for people to walk and jog. Similarly, if we have some developed area, in that case, if the 100-year flood comes, then the damage will be very high. There will be damage to the property as well as the life. In order to protect these areas, we need to have this kind of age protection work, which will not allow the water to enter into these areas, but water should flow through the river only. And once the flood is gone, then it is available for people to access in an easy way. But because our rivers are very long, 44-kilometer rivers, so we don't want to have one type of embankment. So we try to understand which are the various type of developments along the river. So we observe that there are some areas where the sparse development is there, rather no development is there. Some areas where moderate development is there along the river, and some areas, especially Mutha Nadi, where the development has choked the river. That means we have areas where there is a significant land is available, areas where moderate land is available, and areas where there is no land is available. The development or the city has reached up to the river itself, and you see the narrow channel, existing channel also there inside the Mutha river. So our objective was wherever the land is available, we can create these kind of green age protection work with the walking trails, cycling trails, and the material will also be used very natural stones and compacted earth, native trees and grasses. If the land is little limited, then we can go little trapezoidal. However, the technology can be same, very natural material. But if the area, there is no area available, then it is forceful to go vertical. However, this vertical age protection will also have trees so that people can walk through the shades, and the interceptor line will also be accommodated inside to ensure the clean water. If we summarize all these three types of strategies on our plan, so in nutshell, based on the context and the land availability, at 87%, we will be able to provide green age protection works. But at 13% locations where the city has reached up to the river or the defense area where we cannot ask for the more land, there we have to go vertical. So in summary, majority of the river edge protection work will happen in a natural form, natural material, and covered with the grasses, native grasses and trees and shrubs. And that's how we will be able to protect the low-lying surrounding areas, as well as protect the river from the encroachment and erosion. Now let's go to the next objective, which is making river accessible for people, because river is a public asset, but we cannot approach the river, we cannot see the river, we cannot really enjoy the river everywhere. At very few locations we can see the river. But we don't want to make the entire river, 88 kilometers of the edge of the river on both the sides, as accessible. So we prepare a strategy which says wherever we have existing activities, there we can propose the active areas where will be more footfall. Majority of the river may have calm walking areas or walking trails only. So where people can do walking, cycling, sitting, and more greener sort of edge protection work. However, apart from that, there will be some locations, or there are some locations where we have thick vegetation existing along the river, such as Nike bed, defense areas, or the botanical garden area, or even the area which is opposite to the Bund garden, where the number of birds come. So all these areas are identified, and in these areas, we need to be a little more sensitive, and minimalistic approach should be taken. More greener and vegetative edges need to be proposed, and less accessibility shall be proposed. So now showing some visualization to understand, because we have existing development here, settlements here, so we can have some sort of active areas with the help of ghats and steps along with the walking trail. So trails are also very much paved with the help of stones, and the ghats are there to access the river. But the areas which are not currently accessible and we want to keep it low walking level, so with the help of natural material like charu and stones, thick vegetation can be added into it, and these kind of walking trails, walkways can be proposed, and the edge protection, green edge protection next to it. However, at some places where we have this kind of Salim Ali Bird Sanctuary kind of place, or Ram Nadi confluence kind of place, there we can definitely go further, more greener and more natural way to ensure minimalistic approach, minimalistic access at these areas. So we should not hamper the ecology which is existing there. So all these three type of embankments will have upper level, lower level walkways, staircases, and plantation. Apart from that, we also have a culture of Ganesh Visarjan, and for that, at numerous places, we have small or large ghats developed. Some of these ghats are very good in condition. Some of these ghats need repair. So we mapped all these ghats which are there on site, and at strategic locations, we also added some more ghats so that we can add some more ghats here. At many places, we have these access steps. So these access steps, there will be more access steps will be added along the river, so that at many places people can reach up to the river or see the river. So these might be in form of steps or ramp. So this is one of the visualization which shows at upper level we have wide walkway, and there might be some trails which are taking down till the water. If you see this existing condition and how it might be transformed, so one can enjoy the ecology and the clean water along the river. And that's how strategically we can improve the accessibility along the river. Now, let's understand how to ensure the water into the river, but that water has to be clean as well as flowing. In existing condition, majority of the river bed is dry, and whatever water we see is a polluted water only. Why it is happening like this? Because if we see the existing reservoirs, they are very small reservoirs. And because of that, the retention, water retention is up to certain level, certain length only. And apart from that, these reservoirs are either in a solid nature or having a very large number of small gates, which is actually resulting into a solid barrier for the flow of water. That is resulting into the siltation on upstream part, and as well as afflux during the flood. So we are proposing to remove these retention structures, these solid retention structures, and replace it with the help of advanced barrages, which will open from the bottom during the flood time, so that there will be no siltation in the bottom, and the HFL also will not increase. And after the flood time, we can again close the gates and retain the water into the river for entire length of the river. So this is existing scenario where you see that at few places we have water and majority of the river is without retention. However, considering the existing water retention structure locations, the advanced barrages are proposed so that entire river will have water availability. After having the water availability, around 57,000 million liter of water will be stored into the river. As we understand, our river has a rocky bed, and that's why a limited amount of seepage will happen, but it will happen. And we also have calculated what will be the evaporation rate. So in totality, around 56 MLD of water loss will be there, considering evaporation and seepage per day. That means per day, 56 MLD water will be reduced from the retained part of the river. However, as we have seen, around 873 MLD water will be treated in STPs, existing and proposed STPs, which will be poured into the river to ensure the flowing water into the river. And that's how the clean and flowing water will be made available for the river. That means we need only 6% of water to balance the retention, and the additional 94% of water will ensure the water flowing. And that's why the water will be always flowing into the river. It will not be a stagnant water. In order to ensure the water quality as per the MPCB standards, if required, the tertiary treatment facilities also will be installed so that the water in a river will meet the standards. And that's the commitment by PMC, so that the water which will be poured from the STPs will be of that quality. So let's see, this is how the current river is. And after the clean availability of clean water, retained water, at strategic location, one can also have a recreational boating. Because the river is narrow and very much meandering and having rocky bed, we are not proposing the complete navigation through the river. But yes, on upstream part of each reservoir, definitely the recreational boating will be possible. Let's understand this in a cross section. So this is the existing condition of the river, in which we see that the riverbed is mostly dry. And because of that, there is a loss of biodiversity. Whatever water is flowing into the river is mostly a polluted water. And the drainage lines or the facilities which are created, they are very much unorganized, haphazard. There is a dumping of garbage or debris, which is resulting into the seepage. The pollution is also entering into the ground. And because of this pollution, the random invasive species are also developed along the river. So what we are trying to propose here is, by having a clean water into the river with the help of boulders and the grasses which will have deep roots, aquatic life and surface life will also flourish. We are also proposing indigenous grasses species so that the edge will be protected and there will be no loss of the surface soil. The hardy indigenous trees are proposed for the nesting and bed roosting purposes. The fruits trees are also proposed for the birds, which will bring back the lost ecology. And this is how the total ecology of the river will change. The polluted water will be replaced by the clean and flowing water, which will bring back the aquatic life as well. So if we see this visualizes the current situation, this is how the river edge is polluted and having invasive grasses and trees, shrubs, and it will be transformed like this. So people will be able to walk along the river under the shades of the tree, and the green edges, the earthen embankments are proposed, and the retained water is also in front of it. So very natural material is used, and landscaped edges are proposed. So in totality, by ensuring the clean flowing water into the river, so it will definitely help to recharge the ground. As I mentioned, the seepage effect. The current riverbed is dry, the rocks are exposed, and that's why during the summer, the temperature increases. Even the edges are barren without the trees at many places. So when we have water into the river and thick vegetated edges, it will definitely reduce the local temperature. We are also proposing to store the existing flora fauna, as I mentioned, in a accessibility strategy. By having water into the river, the ecology and the biodiversity will definitely get improved. At strategic location, we can also have recreational boating, and in totality, the river will get rejuvenated. The river will come back to its self-cleaning capacity. So now let's go to the next objective, which is improve the connectivity. So in current situation, this is the network what we have of the streets, and these are the DP roads which need to be, some of these roads are already implemented, some will get implemented. This visualization we already saw, but as soon as on that vacant land, the DP road is implemented, it will improve the connectivity of the project with the entire city. The metro lines or the BRTS lines which are there, which are either along the river or across the river, will help people to reach up to the riverfront project. And that will be a decentralized access points, multiple access points from where people can approach the river. This is the existing condition, very narrow channel of Mutha river, and the metro work has already completed. By having this riverfront project, we will be able to better integrate with the metro, and the river will also be widened and the greenery will be added into it. Apart from that, the upper level promenade, which will not only have pedestrian movement, but also help to have smooth cycling trails along the river. And that's how the city will improve its connectivity with the riverfront project. Lastly, because we know Pune city has very long heritage and cultural significance, in order to address that, number of places we see these kind of heritage structures along the river. So these heritage structures will be very sensitively integrated with these green embankment designs, and it will be addressed into the detailed design stage. So for example, if we see here, the heritage wall on the right side, the Shivaji Maharaj bridge, which is in stone in behind, and Ghorpade Ghat is also there. So when we see the visualization, so all these elements are not only retained, but also enhanced with the help of the sensitive design. And there is a definitely addition of landscape, thick vegetation of the trees, and native grasses for various activities. So it will provide public space and also introduce us with our heritage in a better manner. This is the photograph from the Dengle Bridge, and this narrow channel will get widened, and how the landscape will also appear here is visible. So both these heritage walls on both the sides are retained, and minimalistic edge protection work is done at a lower level. Similarly, we have these kind of solid Ganesh Visarjan ghats, which act as obstruction during the flood, and at very few locations we have. So we are proposing some more ghats at a strategic locations. This is a Jnaneshwar Ghat, which is stone ghat, and it will be better integrated Visarjan could also be added into it, but the polluted water will not enter into the river. There are multiple temples along the river. So the connectivity with the river need to be improved. For example, this is Omkareshwar temple. And if you see current situation, there is a garbage dumping, there is a drainage line flowing next to it, and one cannot easily access the river from the temple. But this is how we are conceptually visualizing. So there will be some activity and ghats, etc. will be proposed, and clean water will be very much visible and accessible from the temple. At many places, we have these existing parks and gardens along the river, which we mapped, and a strategy is there to seamlessly integrate these public spaces with the river, so that the beauty of the park as well as the beauty of the river will help each other and complement each other. And this is how we are trying to achieve all these 6 objectives, which is the real need of the city and need of the river. So in totality, what is happening? Let's see as a master plan. So this is my river land boundary. As I mentioned you from the beginning, like a river land as a legal boundary is here, which is 687 hectare. In order to ensure the water flow as per the 100-year flood and to protect that flow, a green embankment is proposed to ensure land for that 81 hectare of land is identified, which need to be added into the riverfront project. So that brings us to 768 hectares. So that is the entire project boundary. Out of that, 526 hectare of area is reserved for the water itself, where we will have water available in a lean period. In order to have these green embankments along the river, 180 hectare of land will be required. And during the flood, this 180 hectare of land will also be available for the water to flow. That means in totality, around 92% of the area of the project is given back to the river for the water to flow. And the remaining 62% of the 62 hectare of the area, which you see as a slivers of land, is identified again, which we are calling here as a remaining land, is identified the public amenities. But we are not doing any real estate type of development into the remaining land. This entire remaining land will be used only for the augmentation of public open spaces, amenities, and infrastructure for the city. So there is no real estate exploitation. So you see here 70% is for the river itself, 22% for the green river edges. So 92% is given back to the river, and wherever these kind of corners and sliver lands are available there, that 8% of land is further divided into 74% of area will be given for the parks, gardens, urban forest, open areas, and 26% of area for the amenities. So this is what the residents of Pune city will get. So there will be integration with the gardens, ghats, Visarjan Kund, boating activity, green plazas, cycle tracks, promenades, the eateries above the flood protection areas, green embankments. So all that will be possible apart from the embankments. So this kind of master plan was approved by the standing committee and general body in 2018. The cost of the project was also approved and further updated as per the new rates in 2021. And this is the bifurcation. That's why this project is very much comprehensive and context specific. Therefore, we call this project as a river rejuvenation project. I will repeat again, this is not just a beautification project, because some people say that it is just a beautification project, but that's not the reality. As you saw, it is a comprehensive project. It talks about various objectives, what we see as the current issues of the river, and all these objectives are addressed parallelly. And the design of the master plan is also very much context specific. There are some frequently asked questions, which I will very quickly cover here. So some people say that there is a concretization under this project. No, because 87% of the river edge will have green embankment only where the land is not available or development has happened along the river. There only we have to go vertical. Therefore, it will be wrong to say that there is a concretization under this project. Will the project reduce the width of the river? No. If you see in existing condition, the river itself is very narrow. This is Mutha river. Only 30 to 35 meter river channel is existing there. So we are widening the channel, creating the river wider. In case of Mutha river, almost the river width will be tripled. However, in totality, if you say, we have added 81 hectare of land into the project to ensure the river width and the river edge protection. So it will be wrong to say that it will reduce the width of the river. Will the project make Pune's river into a straight channel? No, it will not, because river will flow from where it is flowing. So all the twists and turns and meanders are considered while planning the project. So river will not become a straight channel. It will have all the curves and meanders. Will the project cause formation of stagnant water pools within the river? No, as I mentioned you earlier, currently there is no water into the river. And because of that, there is a loss of ecology and biodiversity. However, we are ensuring to have a water into the river, and that is also clean and flowing water, because more than the requirement of the seepage and evaporation loss, additional water will be poured from the STPs, and that's why it will ensure the flowing nature of it. Will the project destroy existing flora and fauna of the river? No, definitely not, because in majority area of the river banks, we don't have this flora fauna available. Only at strategic location, very few location we have flora fauna. So at majority location, we don't have that, which will be added with the help of this project using native and indigenous trees, grasses and shrubs over the natural material. However, wherever the existing natural flora fauna is there, those areas will be dealt specially, sensitively during the detailed design, and it will be protected and enhanced. Will the project only beautify the river's edges? I repeat again, this project is very much comprehensive. After understanding the existing issues and doing technical studies, all the existing issues were summarized, sequenced, and the objectives are framed so that comprehensively river gets improved, river's cleaning, self-cleaning capacity gets improved, and people should be benefited on all the fronts for which they had asked in their opinion survey. So definitely this is not only beautification project, it is a comprehensive project. Will the river land be used for the commercial development? No, it will not be used for the commercial development. The entire project area will be only used for the public amenities and recreational open facilities, parks, gardens, and urban forest. So thank you very much. I stop here, but I also thank to my entire team and the seniors who has helped us, guided us to prepare this project. I'm just one person who is presenting this project, but we have a large team and experts and consultants who have given a feedback, expertise, reports, details on which this project is proposed. I also thank PMC and PCMC and other defense authorities and the authorities, departments, government departments who have helped us to prepare this project, given the approvals. So thank you very much.